very much. It's a great pleasure and privilege for me, and honor to be able to share with all the honorable guests my views and thoughts, and maybe contribute to the discussion. Hopefully, thank you to Governor Dukakis for the invitation, and to Boston Global Forum. And thank you also for establishing the Democratic Alliance on Digital Governance, because this is a very timely and very, very important decision. The world could enjoy the results and the new digital technologies because the world was mainly in the hands of the democratic part of it. Digital technologies and AI were serving to support our freedom of thoughts, freedom of expression, could support the vulnerable people, the people with disabilities or people with diseases, elderly people. AI and digital technology could support transparency of our governance. But unfortunately, this is becoming all endangered, because we have a big task to do, and is to remain the leaders who have these technologies and the development in our hands, in the hands of the democratic part of the world, in the hands of free people and free societies. I come from an ex-communist country, from Slovakia, and maybe I will share a little bit of history to shed certain light into the current developments in the world. The Soviets, during the Cold War, were focusing, as it seems to me, to two major issues. They were trying to gain universities and the intellectuals and the leaders from the West and put them on their side. We all remember the generation, or I don't remember, I was born after, but from books, we remember the generation of the 68, as we call it, young people, educated people who were admiring the Soviet system, the Soviet inhuman totalitarian regime, because they did not understand why the system cannot work and why it is so human and why it's not supporting freedom, but it's violating human rights. I had a discussion with a friend who practically was saying, like, why are you so obsessed by Putin? I mean, he is a part of the history, but still we should focus on other things. But we have to remember that Putin was part of the KGB, which was trying to develop ways of intellectual and industrial espionage, because the Soviet Union has realized that they have to catch up with the development. They have to catch up with the industrial and technological development of the West. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to compete further. What I'm saying is that similar things are happening in our societies, in the free part of the world, already for some time. I used to work for the International Republican Institute, which is an American non-partisan organization, I have to stress. And our goal was to support democracy and freedom worldwide. By the way, this organization was founded by Ronald Reagan during his fight with the Soviet system, then as American president. And it was interesting for me to see that in our pollings, we could see an increasing support that people were asking their own governments, people of free countries from the European Union or the larger Europe, countries on the way to democracy. They were demanding that their governments will start to work more closely with the Chinese government, because they saw that this is a trend they have to follow. They saw that there will be economic profit out of it. We knew that this is not coming out of blue, that the worker in a factory somewhere in Romania will suddenly think that it's very strategic for my government to work with China, because this will bring economic to my we did not have enough of means. I mean, we as a West, and we did not invest enough of energy to look into the technologies and techniques how China is gaining our populations on its side. And they were techniques through media, through work with local and regional authorities. we have realized that articles talking about Chinese investments, which often never happened, were flooding local media, where exactly these people could read and could see that, okay, China probably should be the priority number one for my own government. I read recently an article which was disclosing, it was during the COVID, when practically the Western world started to wake up, and we could see that our compliance to a certain extent with the Chinese regime, because of the economic cooperation, is backlashing and undermining our own society and democracy, especially during the pandemics. We have many examples of this complicity of the West with the Chinese regime, and I will mention two, which in the media, where the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, apparently with Chinese academics, have developed the facial recognition surveillance, which was then later used in Xinjiang in China to survive of people and practically undermine people's dignity and help the regime to suppress its own people. Yale University has sent the DNA samples to the Chinese Ministry of Public Security and has helped to develop a system which is now part of the genetic surveillance techniques. I'm using these examples because we slowly have realized during the pandemics, which was practically too late, that we are not only endangered by the regime in China, but to a certain extent, we are also complicit of the regime, because we for too long believed that economic engagement with China will bring democracy and support human rights in China. Unfortunately, and coming from originally from an organization supporting democracy, we have learned a lesson already some time ago that economic engagement not necessarily supports democratization of a country. We have learned this lesson in Russia. Now we are learning hard lesson with China. I will maybe use a couple of examples from the EU. Again, a lesson learned, where the EU has EU Stratcom was ready to publish a report, EU versus Disinfo, which was trying to cover how China was trying to influence our own population through disinformation during the pandemic. We have evidence, and it was revealed that China or some complicites with China proxies were trying to influence and have managed to influence this report. We all probably know about that EU diplomats, all EU or ambassadors of all EU member states were writing a letter to the Chinese people during the pandemics, and this letter was self-censored by the ambassador of EU to China, Mr. Chapu. We also know, and it was brought by media, that EU diplomats who are in charge of leading the negotiations with China about the future EU trade deal with China and the investment deal do not have the issues related to human rights and Hong Kong in their minutes and in their agenda to bring up with the Chinese representatives. This all shows that if we are not going to put our strengths together and stand against this regime, it's not only we are failing in our human and moral responsibility for the people in China or Hong Kong or other parts of the world who are suppressed by totalitarian regimes, but we are also failing to defend freedom and democracy in our own countries. And that's why I believe that we really, I mean, it is a turning point for the history of the West, because it's reshape the way how we engage with the rest of the world. There are positive signals. For example, the NGO from the UK, Hong Kong Watch, has managed to gather over 900 signatures from legislators all around the world to express their views or express their concerns or practically tell to the representatives of the regime of China after they started the work on the security law for Hong Kong, that this will have consequences, that the Western world will have to react if China passes this law. We all know that the law was passed yesterday and came into power, or came into law today. It's already being used in Hong Kong to suppress the people who deserve and fight for their own freedom, and as we see, already, or for their own lives in a certain way. We have established also IPAC, National Interparliamentary Alliance on China. So I'm just using these examples as examples that there are things happening, that the West is realizing and is getting together in order to defend our own democracy, as I mentioned, and democracy and freedom of every person in this world, as we have the moral responsibility for it as economic powers and powers who have influence on the other countries and the rest of the world. The EU, in its own treaties, has an Article 21, which clearly stipulates that the EU must bring the values which brought the member states of the European Union together in its foreign policy. It is our moral obligation to talk about human rights when we are discussing trade deals with China. It's our moral obligation to our own citizens to defend our own businesses when China is stealing their intellectual property. Because if we are, as I said, we are losing the superiority of democracy and democratic part of the world in this global world, the digital technologies and AI are going to be turned against our own people. And I will maybe finish with two thoughts, using thoughts of others and great people. Cardinal Bo from Myanmar, he has written a very, very powerful article about, where he was practically analyzing how we as the West have failed to defend the world from the pandemics. And he clearly said that the CCP's repression, lies, and corruption are responsible for these global pandemics and for the death and suffering of so many people. We know that it's not only the health which was put in danger or the people who have passed away, but it's also the economic crisis which now follows after the pandemics. But my question is, to what extent we were complicit with this repression, lies, and corruption of the CCP? The CCP will not be able to be corrupted by itself if we were not part of the corruption, or our businesses, our diplomats, our politicians were not part of the corruption scenes. And I think this is exactly where we need to put our emphasis on, is the moral responsibility. We have to strengthen our own democratic systems to be able to remain superior and defend the freedom of people in our countries, in the West, but also in the rest of the world. And I will conclude, because when I was thinking what is actually our mission now, I started to think about the words of Churchill at the beginning of the Second World War, when the UK started to kind of join the forces, and he didn't promise people victory. Didn't promise, because we are or superior, we are going to win this war. He promised people tears, blood, and sweat. And I'm afraid this is exactly what we have to tell our population, our people. And it's very difficult, especially for political leaders as me, to tell people that we have a huge fight ahead of us. And we are not going to win this fight without sacrifices. We have to sacrifice maybe certain economic profits or economic profit in order to win this fight, in order to be able to defend that development, our brains, technologies, AI will serve our people and will continue serving our people and their dignity. Very much. or drones or other aspects which have been mentioned, but as well the aspects where we see that our companies are part of the problem in China because the development of new technologies are serving to suppress human rights and suppress human dignity rather than support it. So this is the issues we would like to deal with. And I don't know if Mr. Duncan Smith is still with us, or maybe if he has something to add as a co-chair, I will be happy to.
Have to leave soon because he have to come to vote today. Yes,
okay.
Because urgently an emergency event in UK and London about Hong Kong today.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Is our friend from Sweden going to be participating? Is he here? Andreas Norden?
Yes, that is now. Senator.
Where is he? Is he with us?
Yes, he's here with us.
Can we get him into the discussion because we're running out of time here?
Yes. Yes, please. Senator.
Is he part of it? Andreas? Is he with us? Is he part of this discussion?
Yes, I see real speaker, and I think I saw. I will go her.
To the Swedish Parliament.
Yeah, Australia, Jordan Hang. That is she stay in computer. Jordan Hang. She.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. Wonderful.
Tuan, it's actually Kimberly.
Yes, Kimberly Kitchen.
Right.
Hold on, Kimberly, hold on just a second. What happened
Yeah,
to the Speaker of the Swedish Parliament? Is he not with us?
Yes. She now with us already, and we can invite Kimberly talk now, Governor, or you discuss.
Well, I want to get on with Kim. I'm wondering what happened to the Speaker of the Swedish Parliament. Is he not part of the discussion?
No, she yes can discussion and she will be speaker some minutes. She now here already and she can talk and discuss now. See here, you can see him. I see her. You can see her. Yes.
Oh.
I can see her, but I can't see him.
I see her. sorry. I'm sorry. So you can see her, and also Liam Burn here. Liam Burn from London also. You're already.